The TCT Network brings you Rejoice.
A connection of encouragement to build your faith and lift you to a new experience in God.
Our program is specifically designed to bring you hope
And the healing power of God through His Word and prayer.
Now, here's today's Rejoice, hosted by Eddie and Kathy Williams.
Praise the Lord and welcome once again to Rejoice. Are you ready to rejoice? You might as well get with it because we are ready to rejoice. Oh, we got wonderful guests in the house today that's going to bless you. But before I go to our guests, I want to encourage you. This is a good time to pick up the phone and call a friend. Call that number on the screen. If you're looking for God to heal you today, if you're looking for God to just give you a breakthrough in your life, if you're looking to God to just move somehow, some way into that situation that may just seem impossible.
That's right.
Today, I believe, is your day for a miracle and for a breakthrough. And if you don't pull my coattail, I'm going to start preaching in this house. Hallelujah. But honestly, I'm excited today. Listen to this. And I want to encourage you, if you haven't already partnered with us, and if you haven't already planted seed, we want to encourage you. Today is a good day to begin to do just that. Garth and Tina has started this ministry. It's been over 34 and a half years. We're going on 35 soon. You know, time is flying. But I want to encourage you to get on board with us and plant seed in TCT. We're spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ right around the world. And then on top of all that, we've got all the wonderful channels, and you name it. Kathy, I know you can go into a lot more detail about it than I can. But the wonderful things that are going on with TCT, this is a wonderful time to take that opportunity, be a part, plant that seed, and watch God move in your direction. Now, I think somebody's watching this, waiting on God to do something for you, but I think perhaps He's waiting on us to do something for the kingdom.
And for the kingdom,
and so I believe that you plant that seed today, that you will be blessed. I am a witness that He will bless and pour blessings into your life, unexpected blessings. He will come in your direction. So call that number. Be a part of TCT. Garth and Tina thanks you for that. Amen. Now I'm excited about our guests because they're going to rock the house. Our guests today are ministers Melvin and Lars from Norton Shores, Michigan. They're from Genesis Christian Life Ministries. And Melvin is the pastor and CEO of Brighter Futures and the executive director of West Michigan Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute for Self-Development. He's a former teacher, coach, principal, professional athlete, sportscaster. He's got that voice. His wife, Lars, is vice president and general manager of Brighter Futures. She retired as the director of curriculum and instruction from Muskegon Heights Public Schools and a former classroom teacher, school administrator, and counselor. She is a nationally certified Harvard University violence prevention trainer of trainers, and we welcome to both of you to Rejoice.
Thank you.
And before we go here, we got a young man that's going to be singing after a while and a little bit in the program. We call his name is Jock. And this gentleman he has pipes. He can blow. In Michigan, we say he can blow. And he's going to be blessing you. And I'm going to be chatting with him a little bit after he sings. But we got a wonderful program in store for you. But welcome once again.
Thank you.
Thank you. God has just done some awesome things in your ministry, in your lives. You've got testimonies. You've got things you're going to share. I believe that today somebody's going to be inspired with their testimony. But let's start out. How did you both meet?
Actually, I guess I'll start. We were involved in a lot of educational activities and things going on, and we do a lot of the same things, administratively, etc. And so we were working on some programs, and we just kind of started talking, and we actually became friends, which I think is always important. Well, actually, I know it's always important.
Yes.
We actually became friends, and like most friends do, you know, you think you're just going to remain friends, and then we started to notice that we just had so many things in common. And here we are, being married 14 years later.
Hallelujah.
And dated for 2 years, so total of 16 years.
Look at that.
Well, you know, awesome. Getting to know you has just been wonderful.
Thank you.
Being able to sit down and talk with you before the program started. But with your both being in education, tell us a little bit about your background in education. And we can start with you, and then we'll go over to Ann, because you've worked as an administrator all in different parts of the country. Is that right? Okay.
Well, first of all, it's great being with both of you as well, and I can say that without being condescending. But my career in administration actually started, I was teaching for 6.5 years in coaching, and for some reason somebody thought that I might make a good administrator, so they started me off as an administrative assistant. And
you were teaching English as well?
Yes, I was teaching English, and which again is a rarity, and I smile to myself a lot of times, you know, because the hard-headed guy in us go, English? I don't know about this guy. English.
But see, you were teaching English and a coach. So.
And a coach.
So that was okay.
So we were very fortunate to start doing that, and actually I started in Texas, teaching and coaching in Texas. And then we, of course, went back to Louisiana for a short time, and then we worked in Los Angeles with Dr. George McKenna. I tell people I'm very proud to share about Dr. George McKenna. Many people are familiar with Joe Clark and Lean on Me. But there's a George McKenna III who happens to be from New Orleans, Louisiana. We were at Washington High School in Los Angeles, and our program was pretty similar to that. As a matter of fact, he and several other gentlemen that have been in that arena were on Oprah some years back. But my administrative expertise has taken me to Michigan, to Ohio, to Texas, to Louisiana, et cetera. And I found myself very blessed to have the opportunity to work with children and to assist them, because as I said before we started the show, I'm naive enough to think that our job is really to help children, and that's why we're there. So I feel very blessed to have had that opportunity.
Yes. Now, as far as siblings now, brothers and sisters?
Yes, well, I have 3 siblings. My baby sister passed away, which I will share when we start on the other part of the program as well. I have an older sister and a younger brother. Like in most families, I am the second child, but technically I'm the oldest child. So I will say that. And my siblings are wonderful people, and we have our discussions as siblings do. Don't always agree on everything, but I love them dearly, and we are, and if I might say, the 2 of them are at the hospital as we speak with my mother, who's not doing really well. So I appreciate them for that, being there to kind of be intercessors while I make my way to Louisiana.
Yes, indeed.
Well, and you were in education, well, I shouldn't say were, still are, but even though you are blessed to retire, and you do not look anywhere near retirement age. Thank you, girl.
Thank you very much.
Yes. But tell us about your background in education.
Well, I started out really doing basic teacher aid work, actually. So I would say that my career started at the basic level, and I always knew that I wanted to be a teacher, and I really think that came about because of the quality of teachers that I had when I was coming along in school.
So good or bad?
They were excellent.
Wonderful.
They were excellent teachers. And I went to school in the South, in the segregated South. So I think there were some master genius teachers that came along, and those were the opportunities that they were afforded at that time. But I always respected them, and I always knew that I wanted to be a teacher. I did not want to be an administrator. I had no aspirations to be a school administrator. But Mel kept saying to me, well, I think you should be a school administrator. I'm like, I really don't want to be bothered with all that. I just have a passion for the kids, and I like what I am doing. But after he kept mentioning it on a frequent basis, then I said, well, okay, I'm just going to throw it out here, and if that's where God wants me to be, he'll work it all out. So I ended up being a principal at 2 schools in Michigan, and one, well, in Ohio too. And then I got called to come back to Michigan. I was working as a principal, and so somebody there in Michigan had heard about the work that I do, basically with at-risk students and in testing and a lot of different things. So they called me, I said yes, and that's how I ended up back in Michigan. But I was in Ohio in a principalship that I never really wanted to do, but I ended up doing.
But you ended up being assistant superintendent for what school district was it?
We're in Muskegon Heights public schools. So, you know, you wear a lot of hats, curriculum director, assistant superintendent, whatever is needed, because it's a small school district and not a lot of staffing at the central administration level. So you do what you have to do so that things work well.
Well, you know, just in this little bit of time that I've talked to the both of you, I can see the passion that you have for kids. And there's so much to talk about, and we're going to try to get to all of it in this hour. But while we're talking about kids, that's something that's really close to my heart as well. Talk about how being a Christian and knowing who God is played into your role as an educator. You're going to help somebody today.
Oh, well, can I just jump on that?
Yes, please do.
I said to Mel, and we always having these philosophical conversations about what really is ministry. And I think you can't put ministry in a box. So I saw what I was doing, and we see what we're doing, as really an extension of the traditional ministry. So when I look at the students and whatever job that I'm doing relative to teaching or whatever, it's really ministering, because we are meeting the needs of the people. So I just had that as my undergirding of my thought process. I never thought of it as a job. I just always thought of it as a ministry. So, you know, you go above and beyond and you do what's necessary to make things work for the people that you're working with every day.
I like that, to make things work for the people instead of to make things work for you.
Right.
Yes.
You know,
Because if
that's
it
great.
were for me, if I was doing it on my own, I'm like, okay, I'm going in my office, shut my door, don't call me, and y'all figure that out.
Right.
You know, that's just your initial instinct to do that. But we always try to help people become successful.
Yes.
And empowered. And so, I mean, you know, this phrase, you probably heard it, I'd rather, see a sermon than hear one.
That's right.
So we just wanted our lives to be examples of what we think Christian educators ought to be. Christian educators ought to exemplify certain qualities. And so we just use that as an extension of the, Church Without Walls.
Yes. That's
Yes,
beautiful.
That's awesome.
That's
and
beautiful.
both of you have so much talent. And even talking with you earlier, you know, as far as coaching, you know, you mentored many men, you mentored many young guys, you know, into football and in that arena. And then also too is another hat that you wore at for a time as a sportscaster.
Loved it. You know, that actually started accidentally, and because I was coaching, there was a rival team at Parkway High School that we used to play, and the father of one of those young men was a very popular radio announcer. And he and I started talking, and we were talking about sports one day. He said, hey, man, why don't you come and help me out? I said, I have no experience doing this, etc. And then when he told me I'd have to be up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning before going to my radio job, I really was not trying to hear that. To be brief, I always had a propensity to become a little chagrined with the sportscasters when they would embellish or try to take away from the athletes without giving an honest rendition. So then we decided to do that and was very fortunate. We were #1 for 3 or 4 years, right on the charts until the leukemia kicked in. But we were very fortunate for that morning drive from 6 to 10. And we do sports. So I enjoy doing the sports, having been a former athlete myself, and having the opportunity to talk about the sports and things of that nature. It was just a blessing. And as a matter of fact, if I could name drop, his name is Bill Sharp. He's the information director at Southern University Shreveport as we speak. And he's a gentleman that got me into doing the sportscasting.
Yes. You know, you have a dynamic testimony, and you touched on it just a second ago. You mentioned about leukemia.
Yes.
You also, in a phraseology that you mentioned, you said dying on your feet.
Yes.
You will talk a little bit about that.
Well, you know, I was literally dying on my feet. I was in sports and had been very successful as a coach. Came back to Louisiana. My head coach, Gerald Kimball, whom I love dearly, asked me to come over and run the defense for him. We were undefeated 2 years running in regular season. We were always rated in the top 5 defenses, etc. Coach Kimball took a job at Southern University. I assumed the head coaching job. Well, not only was there pressure, you know, you want to look good in front of the homeboys, so to speak. First 2 ball games, we win those ball games. The next 8, we couldn't buy a victory. So I'm all frustrated and trying to figure out what's going on, etc. We come into the next year, we struggled again. And a friend of mine, Dr. Larry Daniels, who was a physician, he and I were talking, and I developed this rash in my chest, and I couldn't get rid of it. He'd given me all kind of topical creams, etc. And I kept saying, man, something is wrong. This won't go away. So as I'm sitting in his office, he says to me, why don't you let me give you a blood test. Man, you know, I don't need a blood test. He said, no, man, let me give you a blood test. Later on, he told me, he said, I knew 2 things were wrong with you. I said, well, he said, either you had AIDS or you had cancer. He said, I knew it was one of those 2. He said, and I just couldn't fathom either one. So the nurse gave me a blood test. She came to the door, and she begged for him. And though she was looking at me really strangely. So I heard him say to her, he said, well, now take it again. So they took the blood a second time. Then he came in and said, man, I really need you to go see an oncologist. And this all happening within 30 minutes. So I'm looking at him like, an oncologist? what do you mean? He said, but I need you to go. So he called the oncologist. I went to see the oncologist. Then the oncologist, they ran tests. And then he said to me, well, you know, you may have leukemia. I'm not really sure. They sent me to an ophthalmologist. So as I'm sitting there, then as they're looking into my eyes, you know, doctors are usually pretty cool under fire. So this guy starts to beg for another person. He said, look, you need to see this, need to see this. And what I did not know, what the blood was actually leaking into my eyes. And they were seeing blood in my pupils. And I had noticed when I'd be driving at night, I would see red in headlights. So I'm thinking, well, people are on their brakes, and then the brake lights are reflecting in the headlights. But my body was breaking down and deteriorating already. I was having difficulty. Even when I shave, I became hemophilic because I didn't have facial bumps. But I noticed that I would have all this blood on my towel. I'm going, what's happening here? I look in the mirror, and I couldn't see it, but it was coming out of the pores. Wow. And if I tried to eat a steak or something like that, I noticed my teeth would separate. You know, it wasn't to the point of blood, but you could feel them moving. Yes. Man, what's wrong? And I would practice with my ball players, and I would have these big contusions come up on my arms about the size of golf balls. I said, that's never happened before. So all of these things were going on with my body. It was just breaking down because of leukemia. I went to see the doctor. I'm sitting like I'm sitting right now, and I noticed the nurses peeping around the corner. And I'm thinking, man, what are they peeping for? You know, I'm a big guy, so I figured they probably said, man, that's a big old dude out there. You know, I'm being very honest with you. So I'm thinking they're looking, because you know, people probably say, come look at this big guy, because people tease me all the time, because you know I'm not very tall, but I am a wide man. So then I go in, and she looked at me, she said, Mr. Lars, how did you get here? I said, I drove my car. And then she looked at me again, very matter-of-factly, and she said, how did you get here? I said, I drove my car. And by this time, I'm wondering, why is she asking me this? So she said, well, okay, have a seat there. The doctor will be with you in a minute. So he comes in, and he just flat out said, he said, Mr. Lars, you have what's called acute promyelocytic leukemia. He said, there is no treatment for this type of leukemia. He said, we can experiment with doing chemotherapy. He said, but there's no guarantee that's going to work because it's not really a treatment. He said, you know, you would need a bone marrow transplant. He walked me through all of these things. Wow. So my next question to him was, okay, so when do we start? But I said, I have one request. And he said, what is that? I said, I have one ball game left. It's been a really rough season on my kids, and I really would like to be with them for the final game. So his question was, when is the last ball game? I said, this coming Thursday. This was on a Friday. I said, this coming Thursday. Yes. He said, well, it shouldn't progress any worse. So go ahead and finish the season, but you have to give me your word that you'll check in the hospital the very next morning. So I did that, and thank God to my fellas, if any of them are watching, thank them for winning the ball game for me. And to Coach Charles Thrash, who was helping me as my assistant head coach at that time. We did win the ball game, and I went in. And he was shocked because it had progressed really worse. And, you know, some people say, how do black people know they're getting darker? My skin has started to turn dark. My hands were white. And then they rushed me and they started giving me, I think they had to give me 4 pints of blood immediately. And my body went into a chill and kind of a shock. I wasn't in a coma, but I was kind of in and out for about 3 weeks. And then after that, I started to come out of it.
Well, now, before you went back to after the game,
yes.
were you feeling any differently?
Well, actually, and I skipped over that point. She asked me if I was feeling okay. I had a hazy headache. It was nothing very serious. It was nothing that I would normally take an aspirin for, anything like that. And that's why when I tell people I was dying on my feet, my body was actually breaking down and deteriorating. And God let me walk around. And I'm glad you asked me that question and brought me back to that point, because I really don't want to miss that, is that God was just carrying me. And I would go into these deep night sweats where I'd have to get up and change the sheets and things like that. So being that ill and not even knowing it, and God was just carrying me right on as if nothing was happening.
Did it challenge your faith? How did it challenge you?
Actually, it did. Excuse me. It challenged my faith because I had somehow let football become my God. I was wrapped up in the fact that, wait a minute, you know, I'm the cat's meow when it comes to coaching. I can't be in charge of a team that just went undefeated 2 years in a row. Then I take over the team and we can only muster 2 ball games. And then the next year, I think we only won 1.
Yes.
Well, actually it was 2 because we won the last one. I said, there's something got it. So I stopped going to church, spending all my time watching film and trying to figure out what was going on. Yeah. I used to participate in the male course. We had practice on Thursdays. I stopped doing that. I allowed football to become my God. And I just, even today, you know, I feel like God was saying, you know what? I have a message for you. He says, you decided that you're going to allow something else to replace me, then I'm going to have to sit you down for a moment, and we're going to have a little conversation. And my rendition is just it was in the form of leukemia. And the leukemia, actually, 6 weeks later, it went into remission. And I was told that if it returned, that I had less than 5% chance of survival, and that was with a bone marrow transplant, or they were going to try to do what's called an autologous bone marrow transplant. They sent me to the Cancer Treatment Center in Dallas, Texas. And I was supposed to be there for 9 weeks initially. Then I was supposed to have to be there after that time to go every day for up to a year, 2 years, while they were trying to help rid my body of this leukemia. Well, as I'm there and they're working on me, I had gone through several series of the chemotherapy, but there was not enough bone marrow they could collect. They were going to, quote, clean up the bone marrow, unquote, return it to my body once I finished the leukemia regimen, and then once I finished the other regimens that they do, etc. I'm on the gurney.
Yeah.
They're getting ready to zap me with radiation. You know, once they hit you with the radiation, then the bone marrow cannot regenerate itself. So I'm on the gurney, and the gentleman gets a call on the pager. He said, "Mr. Lars, I'm going to have to return you to your room. We cannot go right now. The doctor will be down to talk to you." So the doctor comes down, and he has this look on his face, and I appreciate their bedside manner. He said, "Mr. Lars, we have a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" He said, "Well, we can't take you to radiation." And he said, "We will never be able to take you to radiation because we could not extract enough bone marrow. So we cannot treat it and return it to your body, and we do the radiation, then you will definitely die. It's no way." And I said to him, "There's a power stronger than all of us." And I've been saying this for the 2 years that I've been dealing with this leukemia. And so, of course, he gave me the general, "Well, it's good you have faith," and all of that. And I'm smiling to myself because I know God does his thing when he's ready.
Yes.
So they returned me to the room, and I'm sitting there, and I'm praying. But now let me tell you a second twist to this. I'm praying not for myself. I'm praying for my sister, who was in another hospital dealing with renal